clergy sexual misconduct. So they're basically female Unitarian Universalist ministers who have sexually exploited vulnerable female members of their congregation and that sort of thing. I could even name one or two. Eliza Gallagher comes to mind here. Eliza Gallagher of the Wildflower Unitarian Universalist congregation in Texas was found to have exploited female members of her congregation. To the best of my knowledge, she's no longer a Unitarian Universalist minister. But that issue too, you know, I'm not sure how well that was handled, to be honest. I think it was sort of, she was, you know, one of these many cases where ministers are quietly resign and go away. But nonetheless, I will say that to their credit, the Wildflower Unitarian Universalist congregation did later, somewhat after the fact, try to be more transparent about what happened. In fact, I might not even know about what happened if they hadn't put up a blog post talking about it. That blog post, I think, has since been taken down. But to their credit, Wildflower Unitarian Universalist congregation did, at some point, as part of, you know, trying to deal with the clergy sexual misconduct that Reverend Eliza Gallagher was guilty of, they did put up a blog. But then actually there was, come to think of it, there was a couple of other ministers, male ministers, who were also found to have been guilty of misconduct. I think one of them, it was non-sexual in nature, but perhaps ironically, this other minister, Reverend Douglas Morgan Strong, he was found guilty of indecent exposure. He ended up on the Texas sex offenders list because he exposed himself. Essentially what it comes down to is Reverend Douglas Morgan Strong was driving along the highway with no pants on, and basically apparently exposing himself towards the end of homosexual hookup. That's essentially what I understand. So basically Douglas Morgan Strong was caught in this manner and found guilty of, you know, basically indecent exposure, if not one or two other things, and he ended up on the Texas sex offenders list. Ironically, Reverend Douglas Morgan Strong was one of the members of the executive of the Ministerial Fellowship Committee who rejected my complaint against Reverend Ray Drennan. So I guess that's a little bit of karma for Douglas Morgan Strong. You know, he rejects a perfectly well-founded complaint of non-sexual clergy misconduct, and then some years later ends up on the Texas sex offenders list. So let's see here, we got a plane going by, making a bit of noise. And, more people showing up here. Just want to make sure this thing's still recording here. And yes, it is. We got about 9 minutes of recording time left. So as we can see, people are showing up at the Unitarian Universalist congregation in Lachine, the Lakeshore Unitarian Universalist congregation. There's about 8 cars parked here, and maybe 9, actually, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, yeah, 9 vehicles. Fair number of people see my protest here. They know what it's about. And so far the police haven't showed up, which is good. Hopefully they won't. But I should mention that in a couple of previous protests, SPVM police officers did show up as a result of effectively bogus complaints brought against me. Certainly certainly the last time they showed up, which I think was the last time I protested here, it was a completely bogus complaint. Somebody called in to the SPVM that I was promoting pedophilia and rape outside the church here. Now, it is possible that a non-Unitarian Universalist member of the public saw these picket signs and mistakenly interpreted them as if I was promoting pedophilia and rape, when in fact, I'm doing the exact opposite. I'm protesting against the cover-up and denial of pedophilia and rape by the Unitarian Universalist religious community. But I suspect that what happened, because there weren't a lot of passers-by, it's Sunday, there's not a lot of non-Unitarians in the area on Sunday mornings. I suspect what happened is that a member of the Lakeshore Unitarian Universalist congregation called in a false report to the police to try to get rid of me. That's what I suspect probably happened. It may not have, but it's a very real possibility. I've had a fair number of false accusations brought against me in the past, including by female Unitarian Universalists who are trying to shut down my protest against clergy abuse. And that includes Sue Montgomery again. But it also includes Margot Ellis, former president of the Unitarian Universalist Church in NDG, the Unitarian Church of Montreal, located in NDG. That's Notre Dame de Grâce Borough. If we go back to January 2014, the first Sunday of January 2014, I was protesting outside the Unitarian Church of Montreal when Margot Ellis came towards me. I stepped out of the way to let her pass on the sidewalk to my left, and she just barged right into me with a body check worthy of an NHL hockey player and sent me flying onto my back on the snow. So she basically gave me a full-on body check that knocked me right off my feet. This is assault. And so I debated, whether or not I should call the police and report this assault on me by Margot Ellis. I decided there was no emergency, I wasn't hurt, so I said I'm not going to call the police right now. I didn't want to interrupt my protest. I said to myself, well, I'll call the police later in the week and ask them what they think, is it worth bringing charges or not. So I continued my protest, and when I wrapped up my protest and I was on the point of leaving, an SPVM police car showed up. So I told the officer, well, I'm leaving, see you later. They said, no, I need to talk to you. I said, what for? And he initially started talking to me about the fact that I was filming the protest and this and that, and we discussed that for a little bit. Then another car showed up and a couple of more SPVM police officers were there. So now there were 3 SPVM police officers, and one of them told me that it had been reported that essentially, he did not use these exact words, but he essentially implied that I had assaulted a woman in front of the Unitarian Church of Montreal. So what had happened is Margot Ellis, and possibly also an accomplice, had called in a false report to the police to the effect that I had assaulted her.
Hi, Mom!
So I made it clear to the police that did not happen. I made it clear to the police that the exact opposite happened. And so that's just another case of a female Unitarian Universalist trying to shut down my protest, because that's what she was trying to do. She thought by bringing criminal charges against me for an alleged assault on her that she would be able to get court conditions preventing me from being near the church. I'm sure that was what her motivation was. Unfortunately for her, it did not work, because I was able to convince the police that there absolutely no assault on her or any other woman had taken place, and on the contrary, I had been assaulted. And I actually did bring an assault complaint against Margot Ellis on the spot when the police were there, but an SPVM detective decided not to act on it. So here is a situation where I'm assaulted by a female member of the Unitarian Universalist Church, clearly in an effort to bring a false assault charge against me and get me arrested and charged with assault and get conditions placed on me to prevent me from protesting. But I'm the one who was actually assaulted, and the SPVM did absolutely nothing. Well, I won't say absolutely nothing, because the cops at the scene actually did a reasonable good job of taking my complaint. But the SPVM detective who was supposed to handle that complaint brushed it off. So basically let Margot Ellis get away with assaulting me. So let me just see what's happening here with the recording. Okay, so we're still recording. Battery power looks good, but we're almost done here. We're almost up to the 30 minutes of recording time, so I think I'm going to wrap this up now and start a fresh clip. We got some more people showing up here. So people have seen the protest. In fact, let's see here. Okay, well, we're just going to wrap this up for now, and we'll start a fresh clip.